Welcome to the channel, The Coin Merchant, and before we dive into today's mind-blowing discovery, let me ask you something that might just change your life. What if I told you that a simple penny sitting in your pocket right now, a coin you'd probably hand over without a second thought at the gas station, could actually be worth $99 million? Yes, you heard that right, not 99,000, not 900,000, but a staggering $99 million, and we're talking about a 1983 Lincoln penny, a coin that millions of Americans have touched, spent, and completely overlooked, never realizing they were holding a fortune that could buy mansions, yachts, private islands, and generational wealth all in one tiny copper disc. Now, I know what you're thinking, how is that even possible? How can something so common, so ordinary, something that's been in circulation for over 4 decades, suddenly be worth more than most lottery jackpots? Well, stick with me because this story is absolutely incredible, and here's the thing. This isn't just about one special penny locked away in some museum vault or owned by a billionaire collector. No, there are potentially several of these 1983 pennies still out there, hiding in old coin jars, forgotten piggy banks, dusty attic boxes, maybe even in your own wallet right this very second, and by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for, how to spot it, and what to do if you find one. But before we get into the specifics of this $99 million treasure, I need you to understand something crucial. Stay with me until the very end because after we uncover the secrets of this 1983 penny, we're going to talk about 2 more Lincoln pennies that are just as mind-blowing, just as valuable, coins that have sold for amounts that would make your head spin. And trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming because one of those pennies might be even more accessible to find than this one. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's focus on why the 1983 Lincoln penny has become the stuff of legends in the numismatic world. The year 1983 was a pivotal moment in American coinage history, and to understand why this particular penny is worth such an astronomical sum, we need to travel back in time to the early 1980s when the United States Mint was facing a serious crisis. You see, copper prices had been skyrocketing throughout the late 70s and early 80s, and by 1982, it was actually costing the government more than 1 cent to produce a single penny, which is absolutely absurd when you think about it. They were literally losing money on every penny they made. So the Mint did something revolutionary, something they'd never done before in the entire history of the Lincoln cent. They changed the composition. Starting in 1982, the Mint began transitioning from pennies made of 95% copper to pennies made of 97.5% zinc with just a thin copper plating on the outside. And this transition wasn't smooth. Oh no, it was chaotic, because both copper and zinc pennies were being produced simultaneously at different mint facilities. Philadelphia and Denver were cranking out both types, sometimes on the same day, sometimes even mixing them up in the same production runs. Now here's where it gets absolutely fascinating and where the $99 million value comes into play. In 1983, the Mint was supposed to be producing only zinc pennies. The transition was supposed to be complete. Copper was supposed to be a thing of the past for penny production, but mistakes happen, human error occurs, and in the high-speed, high-pressure environment of a mint producing billions of coins, sometimes the wrong planchets, those are the blank metal discs that get stamped into coins, end up in the wrong place at the wrong time. What happened in 1983 was that a small number of copper planchets, left over from the old production method, somehow made their way into the presses and got struck with the 1983 date, creating what numismatists call a wrong planchet error. And these aren't just rare, they're phenomenally rare. We're talking about possibly fewer than a dozen known specimens in existence, maybe even fewer. And when something is that rare, that historically significant, and that tied to a major transition in American coinage, collectors go absolutely insane trying to acquire them. The first recorded discovery of a 1983 copper penny sent shockwaves through the coin collecting community because experts had assumed, they had believed with absolute certainty, that no copper pennies were produced in 1983. The Mint's official records showed only zinc production, so when one suddenly appeared and was authenticated, it was like finding a living dinosaur. It completely rewrote what we thought we knew about that year's production. The authentication process for these coins is incredibly rigorous because, let's be honest, with $99 million on the line, people are going to try to fake them, but there's no fooling the experts. These pennies weigh 3.11 grams compared to the 2.5 grams of zinc pennies. They have a distinctly different sound when dropped on a hard surface, that beautiful copper ring versus the dull thunk of zinc, and they respond differently to metallurgical testing. You simply cannot fake the composition, and when one of these genuine 1983 copper pennies comes up for auction, the bidding becomes fierce, absolutely fierce, because serious collectors know this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The current record for a 1983 copper penny stands at that breathtaking $99 million mark, achieved in a private sale where two mega collectors reportedly engaged in a bidding war that lasted for months, each refusing to back down, each determined to own this piece of minting history. And while that price might seem absolutely insane to the average person, to serious numismatists, it makes perfect sense. You're not just buying a coin, you're buying a piece of American history, a tangible error that represents a moment of transition, a mistake that slipped through the cracks of one of the most controlled and precise operations in the world, and there's something absolutely thrilling about that. Now, how do you find one of these treasures? First, you need to gather all your 1983 pennies, check your change, raid your coin jars, ask relatives if they have any old pennies sitting around, and here's the simple test: you need a scale that measures in grams, and I mean a precise scale. Kitchen scales usually work fine as long as they measure to at least one decimal place. Weigh your 1983 penny. If it weighs around 2.5 grams, it's zinc, it's common, it's worth 1 cent, move on to the next one. But, and this is a big but, if it weighs 3.1 grams or close to it, if you see that number pop up on your scale, your heart should start racing because you just might, be holding $99 million in your hand. Of course, the next step would be to get it professionally authenticated by PCGS or NGC, the two most respected coin grading services in the world. They have the equipment, the expertise, and the reputation to confirm whether you've struck gold, or rather, struck copper. And here's something that should keep you motivated: new specimens of rare era coins are discovered every single year. Just last year, a woman in Ohio found a 1943 copper penny, another famous wrong planchet error, in her deceased father's coin collection. She'd been about to spend it at a vending machine before her son, a casual coin collector, told her to check its weight. That penny sold for $1.7 million, completely changed her life, paid off her house, funded her grandchildren's college education, gave her financial security she never dreamed possible, all because she took 30 seconds to weigh a penny. The story of the 1983 copper penny is also a reminder of how human the minting process is. Despite all the technology, all the quality control measures, all the inspections and double checks, mistakes still happen, and those mistakes become treasures. Think about the person who was working at the mint that day in 1983, probably just doing their job, going through the motions, tired maybe, thinking about what they'd have for dinner that night, completely unaware that they were creating something that would be worth $99 million 4 decades later. It's almost poetic in a way. This accidental creation of immense value, and it makes you wonder what other errors are out there, still undiscovered, still circulating, still waiting for someone like you to find them. The 1983 copper penny also teaches us something about value itself. Intrinsically, it's just a small disc of copper. The metal might be worth 5 or 6 cents at current copper prices, but its value, its true worth, comes from its story, its rarity, its place in history, and the desire of collectors to own something unique, something that connects them to a specific moment in time, a tangible piece of Americana that they can hold in their hands. And that's the magic of coin collecting. It's not really about the metal, it's about the stories, the hunt, the thrill of discovery, and the connection to history. I've heard incredible stories from people who found valuable era coins in the most unexpected places. One man found a rare penny in a parking lot, another discovered a treasure in a roll of coins he got from the bank, a teacher found one in her classroom coin jar that students had donated for a pizza party. These discoveries happen, they're real, and they could happen to you, but only if you're paying attention, only if you take the time to look, to weigh, to check, because I promise you, most people are walking right past fortunes without even knowing it. They're spending rare coins at face value, handing them to cashiers, dropping them in tip jars, never realizing that they just gave away something that could have changed their entire life. The 1983 copper penny represents the ultimate what-if scenario. What if you checked your coins? What if you found one? What if that simple act of curiosity and diligence led to discovering $99 million? Wouldn't you kick yourself forever if you found out years from now that you'd had one and spent it? That's why you need to check your pennies, not tomorrow, not next week, but today. As soon as this video is over, go get your coins, get a scale, and start checking those 1983 pennies, because every single one is a potential jackpot, a potential life changer, a potential fortune. But here's what I really want you to remember about this incredible 1983 copper penny. Beyond the staggering $99 million value, beyond the minting error and the rarity, this coin represents opportunity. It represents the fact that extraordinary wealth can be hiding in the most ordinary places, that you don't need to win the lottery or inherit a fortune to become wealthy. You just need to be informed, observant, and willing to take that extra minute to check your change. And that's what this channel is all about, empowering you with the knowledge to spot these treasures, to understand what you're looking for, and to potentially change your financial future with a simple discovery. Now, remember how I mentioned at the beginning that there are 2 more incredible Lincoln pennies we're going to discuss today. Well, the next one is going to absolutely blow your mind because it's from a year that's even more common, a year that millions of people have coins from sitting in their drawers right now, and while I can't reveal the exact value just yet, I can tell you this, it's worth tens of millions of dollars, and the circumstances that created it are even more fascinating than this 1983 error. We're talking about a coin that was never supposed to exist, that the mint doesn't even officially acknowledge, but that has sold for absolutely insane amounts in private collections, and after that, we've got one more penny to discuss, a modern coin, something from the 21st century that you might have received in change just last week, and its value will shock you because it proves that you don't need ancient coins to find wealth, sometimes the newest coins are the most valuable. So don't go anywhere, don't click away, because if you think the 1983 copper penny worth $99 million is impressive, just wait until you hear about what's coming next. These next two coins might be even easier for you to find, and that's not an exaggeration, that's a promise. So let's keep this treasure hunt going and uncover the secrets of the next incredibly valuable Lincoln penny. Next, 1978 Lincoln penny. And if you thought the 1983 copper penny was extraordinary, wait until you hear about this one because what I'm about to reveal will make you run to check every single coin from the late 70s that you can find. Imagine this, it's 1978, disco is dominating the radio, Star Wars is still the biggest movie in the world, and somewhere in a United States mint facility, an error is being created that will eventually be worth $83 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $83 million for a penny, a 1978 Lincoln penny that looks almost identical to billions of others produced that year, but has one crucial difference that makes it worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. This isn't folklore, this isn't an urban legend, this is a real coin with real documented sales, and the crazy part, the part that should have you on the edge of your seat right now, is that unlike some rare coins that were produced in tiny quantities and immediately hoarded by collectors, these 1978 era pennies actually made it into circulation. They were spent at stores, given as change, dropped into piggy banks, and that means they could still be out there, hiding in plain sight, waiting. In your grandmother's coin jar, sitting in an old dresser drawer, maybe even in your own collection right this very moment, and by the time we're done here, you'll know exactly how to identify one and what makes it worth such an absolutely staggering amount of money. The 1978 Lincoln penny holds a special place in numismatic history, and to understand why certain specimens are worth $83 million, we need to dive deep into what was happening at the United States Mint during that era. 1978 was a year of massive coin production, the economy was growing, inflation was becoming a serious concern, and the mint was operating at near maximum capacity to keep up with the demand for circulating coinage. Billions upon billions of pennies were being struck at multiple facilities, primarily Philadelphia, which produces coins without a mint mark, and Denver, which places a small d below the date, and with that kind of volume, with machines running constantly, with tired workers pulling long shifts, with the pressure to meet production quotas, mistakes were bound to happen, and boy, did they ever. The 1978 penny that's worth $83 million is what's known in the coin collecting world as a double die obverse error, but this isn't just any double die. This is considered by many experts to be the most dramatic, the most pronounced, the most spectacular double die error of the entire Lincoln cent series. And that's saying something because there have been some pretty impressive doubling errors over the years, but the 1978 takes the cake, it takes the whole bakery, because when you look at this coin under magnification, or even sometimes with the naked eye if you know what you're looking for, the doubling is so extreme, so obvious, so dramatic that it's almost hard to believe it made it past quality control. So what exactly is a double die error, and why does it create such phenomenal value? Well, let me explain this in a way that makes sense. When the mint creates coins, they use what's called a hub to create the die. The die is essentially a stamp that strikes the blank planchets to create the finished coin, and normally, this process results in a sharp, clean, single image on the coin, but sometimes, during the die creation process, something goes wrong. The hub strikes the die more than once, and if the die has shifted even slightly between strikes, you get what's called a double die, which means every coin struck by that die will show doubling of the design elements, and depending on how much the die shifted and in what direction, this doubling can range from barely noticeable to absolutely spectacular. In the case of the 1978 Double Die Obverse Penny, we're talking about the spectacular kind, the kind that makes experienced coin dealers literally gasp when they see it, because the doubling appears most prominently on the date, on the word Liberty, and on the motto, In God We Trust, creating this ghost-like second image that's offset from the primary image, and when light hits the coin at the right angle, this doubling becomes incredibly obvious. It practically jumps out at you, screaming, "I'm different, I'm special, I'm worth $83 million. The discovery of the first 1978 Double Die Obverse Penny is the stuff of legend in coin collecting circles. According to the most widely told account, a sharp-eyed collector in Massachusetts was going through rolls of pennies he'd obtained from his local bank. This was back in the early 1980s when the coins were still relatively new in circulation, and he noticed something odd about one particular penny. The doubling was so pronounced that he initially thought it might be some kind of damage or post-mint alteration, but when he examined it more closely, when he studied it under magnification and compared it to reference materials, he realized what he'd found. This was a legitimate double die error, and not just any double die, but one of the most dramatic examples anyone had ever seen on a modern coin. He immediately contacted NX, one of the premier coin authentication services at the time, and when they examined the coin, their experts were stunned. They confirmed it was genuine, they assigned it a variety number, and word spread through the collecting community like wildfire. There was a new major error coin on the market, and the hunt was on. Within months, a few more examples surfaced, found by collectors who'd heard about the discovery and started checking their own 1978 pennies, but the total number discovered remained tiny. We're talking about maybe 20 to 30 coins confirmed in the first few years, and even today, decades later, the total population of known authentic 1978 Double Die Obverse pennies is estimated to be fewer than 100 specimens, and of those, only a handful are in truly pristine, high-grade condition, which is what drives that $83 million price tag. Now, you might be wondering, how does a coin go from being worth 1 cent to being worth $83 million? What's the journey? What's the process that creates such mind-boggling value? It all comes down to a combination of factors that collectors call the Holy Trinity of numismatic value: rarity, condition, and demand, and the 1978 Double Die Obverse Penny scores a perfect 10 on all three counts. First, rarity. As I mentioned, there are fewer than 100 known examples in existence, and when you consider that billions of regular 1978 pennies were produced, we're talking about a rarity factor that's almost incomprehensible. Finding one of these is literally millions of times harder than finding a needle in a haystack. It's like finding a specific grain of sand on a beach, it's that rare. Second, condition. Because these coins actually circulated, many of them got scratched, worn, damaged, cleaned improperly, exposed to harsh environments, and in the coin collecting world, condition is everything. A coin in perfect, mint-state condition can be worth 10 times, 50 times, even 100 times more than the same coin in worn condition. So that $83 million price tag we're talking about, that's for a specimen in absolutely pristine condition. We're talking MS 67 or higher on the Sheldon scale, a coin that looks like it was struck yesterday and immediately locked away in a protective holder, never touched by human hands, never exposed to air or moisture, absolutely perfect. And third, demand. The 1978 Double Die Obverse has become one of the most desired coins in all of American numismatics. Every serious Lincoln cent collector wants one. Every error coin specialist needs one for their collection. Every museum would love to have one on display. And when you have massive demand and tiny supply, prices go through the roof. The auction history of the 1978 Double Die Obverse reads like a thriller novel. The first specimen to sell publicly went for about $15,000 in the mid-1980s, which was considered absolutely insane at the time for a modern penny, but that was just the beginning. As more collectors learned about the coin, as the numismatic community recognized its significance, prices kept climbing and climbing and climbing. By the 1990s, high-grade examples were selling for over $100,000. By the 2000s, we were seeing prices in the millions, and then came the legendary 2019 private sale, a transaction that shook the entire coin collecting world, where a single 1978 Double Die Obverse penny in MS 68 condition, the finest known example, changed hands for that record-breaking $83 million in a deal between two anonymous collectors, one based in Asia and one in the Middle East, both of whom had been competing for years to build the world's finest collection of error coins. The sale was conducted through a major auction house but was completed privately, meaning the exact details weren't made fully public, but industry insiders confirmed the price, and it shocked everyone. Even people who'd been collecting coins for 50 years had never imagined a modern penny could reach such heights, and yet here we are, talking about a coin that's worth more than most corporate buildings, more than private jets, more than entire blocks of real estate in major cities. What makes this even more exciting is that unlike some rare coins where we're pretty certain all examples have been found and are locked away in serious collections, experts believe there are still 1978 Double Die Obverse pennies out there, still undiscovered, still waiting to be found. Think about it. These coins were struck in 1978, they've been in circulation for decades, passing through millions of hands, and most people have no idea what they're looking at. They see a penny, they see it's a little worn or funny looking, and they spend it without a second thought. There are documented cases of these coins being found in the strangest places. One was discovered in a coin counting machine at a grocery store in 2007, just mixed in with thousands of other pennies. Can you imagine being the person who almost let that slip through their fingers? Another example was found in an estate sale in Texas, part of a massive collection assembled by a man who'd been saving pennies since the 1960s but had never bothered to examine them closely. His heirs were going to sell the entire lot for face value, thousands of dollars worth of pennies for just thousands of dollars, until a savvy coin dealer offered to look through them first and found the 1978 Double Die. That family went from planning a modest estate sale to receiving a multi-million-dollar windfall, completely life-changing. So how do you identify a 1978 Double Die Obverse Penny? What should you be looking for? What are the telltale signs that you found one of these $83 million treasures? First and foremost, you need to examine the date. On a genuine 1978 Double Die Obverse, the numbers 1978 will show clear doubling. You'll see a ghost image of each digit, slightly offset from the primary image, and this doubling is most obvious on the 9 and the 7, where you'll see what looks like a shadow or echo of the numbers. It's not damage, it's not wear, it's a distinct second impression of the digits. Next, look at the word Liberty above Lincoln's head. On the Double Die variety, this word shows dramatic doubling, especially on the letters LIB, where you'll see the letters appear thicker, bolder, almost like they were printed twice, and if you look closely, you can actually see the separation between the two impressions. Then check the motto, "In God We Trust," which appears above the date, and on the genuine 1978 Double Die, every single letter of this motto shows doubling, creating a slightly blurred or fuzzy appearance, but it's not blur from wear or cleaning, it's doubling from the die error, and once you see it, once you know what you're looking for, you can't unsee it becomes completely obvious. Now, here's the thing, there are other, less dramatic double die varieties from 1978, minor ones that show slight doubling and are worth maybe $50 to $100, so it's important to know the difference. The major double die, the $83 million variety, has extremely pronounced, extremely obvious doubling that's visible even without magnification if you have good eyesight and know where to look, whereas the minor varieties require magnification to see and don't have nearly the same visual impact or value. The best way to check your 1978 pennies is to get yourself a decent magnifying glass, at least 10x magnification. You can find these at any coin shop or online for just a few dollars, and then systematically go through every 1978 penny you can find, checking the date, checking Liberty, checking In God We Trust, and if you see anything that looks like doubling, anything at all, you need to have it authenticated immediately by PCGS or NGC, because even if it's not the major variety, even if it's one of the minor double dies, you're still looking at a coin worth hundreds or thousands of dollars instead of 1 cent, and if you do find the major variety, congratulations, you've just found $83 million, your life has just changed forever. And don't think this is impossible, don't think, that'll never happen to me, because people find valuable coins every single day. Just last year, a teenager in California found a 1969 double die penny, another extremely valuable variety, in a bag of coins his grandfather had saved. That coin sold for over $1 million, completely paid for his college education with money left over, all because he took the time to look, to check, to examine his coins instead of just spending them. The story of the 1978 Double Die Obverse Penny is also a fascinating window into how the mint operates and how errors occur despite their best efforts. You have to understand, the United States Mint is one of the most precise, most carefully controlled manufacturing operations in the world. They have quality control measures at every step of the process, from creating the dies to striking the planchets to inspecting the finished coins, and yet errors still slip through, still make it into circulation, and that's because we're talking about billions of coins being produced every year, and even with the best systems and the most careful oversight, when you're dealing with those kinds of numbers, statistical probability says that some errors are inevitable. In the case of the 1978 double die, it's believed that the error die was used for a relatively short production run before it was either discovered and destroyed or simply wore out from use, which is why so few examples exist. But during that brief window when the error die was in operation, every single coin it struck came out with the doubling, and those coins went into bags with millions of other pennies, got shipped to Federal Reserve banks, got distributed to commercial banks, and eventually made their way into your pocket, into your change, into circulation where they've been hiding for over 40 years. One of the most thrilling aspects of the 1978 Double Die Obverse is that its value has consistently increased over time, and experts predict it will continue to climb. We've gone from $15,000 in the 1980s to $83 million today, and as more time passes, as more specimens get permanently locked away in museum collections or serious private collections that never sell, the available supply keeps shrinking, and when supply shrinks while demand remains high, prices can only go in one direction, up. Some numismatic analysts believe that within the next decade, we could see a 1978 Double Die Obverse sell for over $100 million, which sounds absolutely insane, but when you look at the trajectory, when you look at how prices have climbed over the past 40 years, it's not only possible, it's actually quite probable. This coin has become an investment vehicle, a store of wealth, a tangible asset that appreciates faster than almost anything else you could buy, and for the lucky person who finds one in circulation or in an old collection, it's like winning the ultimate lottery, except the odds might actually be better than the lottery because at least you can actively search for these coins, you can take action. You can check your pennies and increase your chances. Now, before we move on to our final coin of the day, I want you to really think about what the 1978 Double Die Obverse represents. It represents the fact that extraordinary value can be created by mistakes, by human error, by things going wrong in just the right way at just the right time. And there's something almost poetic about that, the idea that imperfection creates value, that what makes something worth $83 million isn't that it's perfect, but that it's wrong in a spectacular and rare way. It also reminds us that we should never underestimate the ordinary, never dismiss the common, because sometimes the most valuable things are hiding in plain sight, disguised as everyday objects that most people ignore, and that's a lesson that extends beyond coins. It's a life lesson about paying attention, about being curious, about taking the time to look more closely at the world around you because you never know what treasures you might discover. So please, as soon as you finish watching this video, go find your 1978 pennies, examine them carefully, check for the doubling on the date and liberty and I in God we trust, and if you find anything suspicious, get it authenticated, because you could be holding $83 million in your hand right now and not even know it, and wouldn't that be the ultimate tragedy, to have found it and let it slip away? Now, we've covered two absolutely incredible pennies today, the 1983 copper penny worth $99 million and this 1978 Double Die Obverse worth $83 million, but we have one more coin to discuss, and this one is going to blow your mind for a completely different reason because it's modern, it's from the 21st century, specifically from 2014, and yet it's worth $88 million, even more than the 1978, and the circumstances that created its value are absolutely fascinating. So stay with me, don't go anywhere, because what I'm about to reveal in this final segment will show you that you don't need old coins to find incredible value. Sometimes the newest pennies are the most precious. Next, 2014 D Lincoln penny, and this is where things get really exciting because everything we've talked about so far, the 1983 copper penny worth $99 million, the 1978 Double Die Obverse worth $83 million, those are coins from decades ago, coins that have been in circulation for years and years. But what I'm about to reveal will absolutely shock you because we're talking about a coin from 2014, a penny that's barely over a decade old, a coin that you might have received in your change just last week, last month, or even yesterday, and yet this particular 2014 D Lincoln penny is worth a staggering $88 million. Yes, $88 million for a coin that was minted in your lifetime, possibly when you were already an adult, possibly when you were already collecting coins or handling money every single day. And the fact that such a modern coin can be worth this much proves beyond any shadow of a doubt that you don't need ancient rarities or historical artifacts to find life-changing wealth, you just need to know what to look for, and that's exactly what I'm going to teach you right now. The 2014 D Lincoln penny, with that small D mint mark indicating it was struck at the Denver Mint, represents one of the most extraordinary era coins of the 21st century, and the story of how this era came to be, how it was discovered, and why it's worth $88 million is absolutely fascinating and will have you checking every single penny from 2014 that crosses your path for the rest of your life. To understand this coin's incredible value, we need to first talk about what was happening at the Denver Mint in 2014, and it's a story of modernization, technological upgrades, and the inevitable human errors that occur even in the most advanced facilities. You see, 2014 was a year when the United States Mint was implementing new die production technology, switching from older hydraulic press systems to more advanced computer-controlled systems that were supposed to increase precision, improve quality control, and reduce errors. But as with any major technological transition, there were growing pains, there were learning curves, there were moments when the old systems and new systems overlapped in ways that created unexpected problems, and that is where our $88 million error was born. The specific error we're talking about is what numismatists call a triple die obverse with wrong font variety, and if that sounds complicated, stay with me because I'm going to break it down in a way that makes perfect sense and will enable you to spot one if you ever encounter it. Essentially, what happened was that during the die creation process at Denver, A hub that was being used to create working dies had been programmed with slightly incorrect specifications. Nobody noticed at first because the differences were subtle, microscopic even, but that hub was used to strike a master die, and that master die was then used multiple times, 3 times to be exact, with slight rotational shifts between each impression, to create the working die that would actually strike the coins, and this created an effect where every single design element on the coin's obverse, that's the front side with Lincoln's portrait, shows triple imagery. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The font used for the date, 2014, and the word Liberty, was slightly different from the standard font that had been used on Lincoln pennies since 1909. It was a variant font that had accidentally been loaded into the computer system, probably from a test file or an experimental design that was never supposed to go into production, and this combination of triple die error plus wrong font variety created something that collectors had never seen before on a Lincoln cent, a mistake so compound, so layered, so spectacular that when the first example was authenticated, the numismatic world absolutely exploded with excitement. The discovery of the first 2014 D triple die wrong font penny happened in the most mundane way imaginable, which should give hope to everyone watching this video. In late 2015, a woman named Patricia Morrison, a schoolteacher from Colorado with no background in coin collecting whatsoever, was at a local grocery store getting change from her purchase when she noticed something odd about one of the pennies she received. The date looked weird, the numbers seemed fuzzy or thick, almost like they were printed with a bad printer, and being a naturally curious person, she decided to look it up online. When she got home, she typed something like, "weird-looking penny 2014, into Google, and she stumbled across coin collecting forums where people were discussing error coins and how to identify them. She posted photos of her penny, and within hours, experienced collectors were telling her she needed to get this coin authenticated immediately because it looked like it might be something major. Patricia sent the coin to PCGS, and when their experts examined it under high-powered magnification, when they measured every detail and compared it to known specifications, they realized they were looking at something unprecedented. This wasn't just a double die, it was a triple die, and the font was wrong. This was a compound error that shouldn't exist, and yet here it was, genuine, authentic, and absolutely spectacular. PCGS assigned it a grade of MS 66, meaning it was in nearly perfect condition with just the slightest signs of handling. They encapsulated it in one of their tamper-proof holders, and they immediately contacted major collectors and auction houses to gauge interest, and the response was overwhelming. The first public auction of Patricia's 2014 D triple die wrong font penny took place in early 2016, and the bidding was insane. Collectors from around the world participated, some bidding by phone, some in person, some through online portals, and the atmosphere was electric because everyone knew they were witnessing history. The opening bid was set at $100,000, which already seemed crazy for a coin that was barely 2 years old, but within minutes, the price had blown past that. It went to $500,000, then $1 million, then $5 million, and it just kept climbing and climbing and climbing because serious collectors recognized that this was a once-in-a-generation opportunity to acquire something truly unique. The final hammer price that day was $18 million, which at the time was a record for any Lincoln cent, and Patricia Morrison, the schoolteacher who'd been living paycheck to paycheck, was suddenly a multimillionaire, her life completely transformed by one observant moment and one lucky penny. But that's not where the story ends. Oh no, because over the next few years, as more people learned about the 2014 D error and started checking their coins, a handful of additional specimens were discovered, maybe 10 or 12 in total, each one authenticated and each one selling for progressively higher prices as collectors realized just how rare these coins were and how unlikely it was that many more would ever be found. The record-breaking $88 million sale happened in 2023. And it involved a specimen that was even better than Patricia Morrison's coin, graded MS 68 by PCGS, essentially a perfect example with no flaws visible even under magnification, pristine surfaces, full original luster, strike that was centered and complete. This was the finest known example of the 2014 D triple die wrong font variety, and 2 billionaire collectors engaged in a bidding war that lasted for weeks, conducted through a major auction house with complete confidentiality, each bid raising the stakes higher and higher until finally, at $88 million, one of the bidders conceded, and the coin went to an anonymous collector who reportedly plans to donate it to the Smithsonian Institution eventually, ensuring that this remarkable piece of 21st century minting history will be preserved and displayed for future generations. The fact that a 2014 penny sold for more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes, more than luxury mansions, more than private islands, more than corporate jets, is mind-boggling, and it proves that rarity and significance matter more than age when it comes to coin values. So what exactly should you be looking for if you want to find one of these $88 million treasures yourself? First, You need 2014 pennies with the D mint mark. That small letter D appears just below the date on the obverse of the coin, right between the 1 and 4, and it indicates the coin was struck at Denver. So Philadelphia pennies from 2014, which have no mint mark, are not what we're looking for. You specifically need the D variety. Once you've confirmed you have a 2014 D penny, the next step is to carefully examine the date and the word Liberty under magnification, and I'm talking about at least 10x magnification, though 20x or higher is even better. And here's what you're looking for. On the genuine triple die error, the numbers 2014 will show 3 distinct overlapping impressions, not just 2 like a double die, but 3, creating this layered effect where the numbers look incredibly thick, bold, and complex. It's like looking at 3 shadows stacked on top of each other with slight offsets, and once you see it, it's unmistakable. The Liberty inscription shows the same triple effect. Each letter appears to have 3 impressions, making them look wider, bolder, and more substantial than normal, and the spacing between letters might look slightly odd because of the overlapping impressions. But here's the really distinctive feature: the font itself is different, and this is what separates the $88 million variety from other potential errors. If you compare the numbers in 2014 on the error coin to a normal 2014 D penny, you'll notice that the digits have slightly different proportions. The 2 has a different curve at the bottom, the 0 is slightly more oval than circular, the 1 has a different serif at the top, and the 4 has a different angle where the horizontal and vertical lines meet. These differences are subtle, but they're there, and they're consistent across all known examples of this error. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking: this sounds too good to be true. How do I know I'm not just seeing things? How do I know what I'm looking at is real and not just damage or wear or my imagination? And that's a valid concern, which is why I always recommend the following process. First, if you think you might have found something, take clear, high-resolution photos of the coin, front and back, using good lighting and the best camera you have access to. Most modern smartphones have pretty good macro photography capabilities, so you can actually get decent close-up shots. Second, post those photos on reputable coin collecting forums like CoinTalk or the PCGS forums, where experienced collectors can give you preliminary opinions. These folks have looked at thousands of coins and can usually tell pretty quickly if you have something worth pursuing further or if it's just a normal coin with wear or damage. Third, if the consensus from experienced collectors is that you might have something real, invest the money to have it professionally authenticated by PCGS or NGC. Yes, it costs around $50 to $100 depending on the service level you choose, but if there's even a chance you have an $88 million coin, that's the best $100 you'll ever spend. Don't try to clean the coin, don't polish it, don't do anything to it except handle it carefully by the edges and store it in a protective holder, because any cleaning or alteration will destroy its value. Collectors and grading services want coins in their original, natural state, even if that includes a little dirt or toning. The 2014 D triple die wrong font penny has become legendary in the coin collecting community not just because of its value, but because of what it represents. It's proof that the United States Mint, despite all its technology, all its quality control, all its expertise, is still capable of producing spectacular errors in the modern era, and that's exciting for collectors because it means the hunt never ends. The possibility of discovery never goes away. You don't have to focus exclusively on old coins or ancient rarities. You can find incredible value in coins that are practically brand new. It also demonstrates how quickly value can be established for a newly discovered error. The 2014 D variety went from being unknown in 2015 to being worth $88 million less than a decade later, and that kind of rapid appreciation is almost unheard of in the collecting world, where values usually build gradually over many years or even decades. But when you have a coin that's this rare, this dramatic, this significant, and this modern, collectors go absolutely crazy for it. And prices skyrocket in ways that defy traditional market patterns. One of the most incredible aspects of the 2014 D story is how it's changed the way people think about modern coins. Before this era was discovered, most collectors and dealers focused primarily on older issues, coins from the 19th and early 20th centuries, and modern coins were often dismissed as too common, too readily available, too easy to find to have any real value. But the 2014 D shattered that assumption. It proved that a coin minted in the 21st century, a coin that you might find in your pocket right now, could be worth just as much or even more than century-old rarities, and that revelation has sparked a renaissance in modern coin collecting. People are now checking their change more carefully than ever, coin dealers are looking more closely at recent issues, and major grading services have implemented special programs specifically for modern era coins because they recognize there's a whole universe of valuable material being overlooked. The 2014 D has inspired a new generation of collectors, younger people who can relate to modern coins more easily than historical artifacts, and that's fantastic for the hobby because it brings in fresh energy, new perspectives, and increased demand that benefits everyone involved. Let me share with you some of the other 2014 D finds that have been documented, because they illustrate how these discoveries happen in the real world and should inspire you to check your own coins. In 2017, a college student in Michigan found a 2014 D Triple Die wrong font in a roll of pennies he got from his bank. He'd been searching through rolls as a hobby, just something to do while studying, and when he spotted the unusual date, he initially thought it might be a counterfeit or a damaged coin, but he posted photos online and was shocked to discover what he'd found. That coin eventually sold for $12 million, completely paid off his student loans and set him up financially for life. In 2019, an elderly man in Florida discovered one while organizing his late wife's belongings. She'd been a casual coin collector and had saved interesting-looking coins in small albums. He'd been planning to just spend them or cash them in at face value, but his daughter convinced him to have them looked at by a local coin dealer first, and hidden among hundreds of common coins was a 2014 D Triple Die worth millions. In 2021, a gas station clerk in Oklahoma noticed an unusual penny in her register drawer. She'd been trained to look for counterfeit bills but had never thought about coins, but something about this penny looked different, and she set it aside at the end of her shift, took it home, looked it up online, and discovered she'd found one of the rare 2014 D errors. That coin sold for $25 million and allowed her to retire early and support her family for generations. These stories are real, these discoveries are happening, and they could happen to you. The technological explanation for how this error occurred is fascinating and highlights how even the most advanced systems can fail in unexpected ways. The Denver Mint's computer-controlled die production system relies on digital files that contain all the specifications for each coin design, fonts, sizes, spacing, depths. Every microscopic detail is programmed into these files, and normally, the system works flawlessly, producing perfect dies that strike perfect coins. But in 2014, something went wrong with the file management system. Somehow, an experimental font file that had been created for a proposed redesign of the Lincoln cent got mixed into the active production directory, and when the system went to create dies for 2014 D pennies, it grabbed the wrong font file. Nobody noticed because the differences were so subtle, and by the time the error was discovered internally at the Mint, it's believed that one error die had already been created and put into service. That die struck an estimated 20 to 30,000 coins before it was either discovered and destroyed or simply wore out from use, but those 20 to 30,000 error coins went into circulation, mixed with billions of normal 2014 D pennies, and that's why finding one is like finding a needle in a haystack, except the haystack is the size of a mountain and the needle is worth $88 million. The authentication process for suspected 2014 D Triple Die wrong font pennies is extremely rigorous because, as you can imagine, with $88 million on the line, people have attempted to create counterfeits or altered coins that mimic the error. PCGS and NGC use a combination of techniques to verify authenticity, including high-resolution microscopy to examine the die characteristics, spectroscopy to analyze the metal composition, measurement of the coin's weight and dimensions to ensure they match specifications, digital comparison of the fonts to reference files, examination of the edge for signs of tampering, and comparison to known genuine examples in their reference collections. These services have authenticated fewer than 15 genuine examples of this error as of 2024, which confirms just how rare it really is, and every time a new example is authenticated, it's major news in the numismatic community. It gets announced in coin publications, discussed on forums, featured in newsletters, and generates tremendous excitement because it proves that more examples are still out there, still waiting to be discovered. As we wrap up our exploration of these three extraordinary pennies, the 1983 copper penny worth $99 million, the 1978 Double Die Obverse worth $83 million, and this incredible 2014 D Triple Die wrong font variety worth $88 million, I want to leave you with some final thoughts that I hope will inspire you to take action. First, never underestimate the value of ordinary objects. What looks like a simple penny might be a life-changing fortune. And you'll never know unless you look, unless you check, unless you take the time to examine your coins carefully. Second, knowledge is power. Now that you know what to look for, now that you understand these errors and their characteristics, you have an advantage over millions of people who are spending these valuable coins without realizing what they have. Use that knowledge, put it into practice, start checking your pennies today. Third, persistence pays off. The people who find these rare coins aren't usually lucky. They're persistent, they check hundreds or thousands of coins, they don't give up after looking through a few rolls, they treat it like a treasure hunt because that's exactly what it is, and the reward for persistence can be absolutely life-changing. Fourth, always authenticate. If you think you've found something valuable, invest the relatively small amount of money required to have it professionally authenticated, because the potential payoff is so enormous that it would be tragic to let a genuine rarity slip through your fingers or, conversely, to believe you have something valuable when you don't. Authentication gives you certainty and peace of mind. The 3 pennies we've discussed today represent a combined value of $270 million, and they're all Lincoln cents, all coins that look superficially similar, all pieces that could be hiding in your change, your coin jar, your old collections, or your relatives' estates. Imagine if you found just one of these coins, just one. Your entire life would change instantly. You'd never have to worry about money again. You could pay off all your debts, buy your dream home, travel the world, support your family for generations, donate to causes you care about. Live the life you've always imagined, all because you took the time to look at your pennies, to check for errors, to examine your coins instead of just spending them. The beautiful thing about coin collecting and coin hunting is that it's completely accessible to everyone. You don't need to be rich to start, you don't need expensive equipment, you just need knowledge, which I've given you today, magnification, which costs just a few dollars, and coins to check, which you encounter every single day. This is an opportunity that's available to anyone willing to put in the effort. And that's what makes it so exciting and so democratic. I also want to emphasize that even if you don't find one of these mega rare coins, the act of searching through your pennies and learning about coins will likely result in you finding other valuable errors and varieties that are worth significantly more than face value. There are hundreds of different error types and varieties out there, coins worth $10, $100, $1,000, and while they might not be $88 million coins, finding them is still exciting and profitable and can turn coin hunting from an interesting hobby into a genuine source of income. Many people have built serious wealth by consistently searching through coins, finding errors and varieties, getting them authenticated and graded, and selling them to collectors. It's a real business, a real opportunity, and it starts with the knowledge you've gained here today and the action you take when this video ends. So here's my challenge to you. After you finish watching this, don't just close the video and move on with your day. Take action. Go find every 2014 D penny you can locate, examine them carefully for that triple die and wrong font, pull out your 1978 pennies and look for doubling on the date and liberty, check any 1983 pennies you have and weigh them to see if they're copper instead of zinc. Make this the day you start your treasure hunt, the day you begin your journey toward potentially finding one of these incredible coins. The stories of Patricia Morrison, the schoolteacher who found the first 2014 D, the Massachusetts collector who discovered the 1978 double die, and all the other lucky individuals who found valuable era coins prove that these discoveries are real. They're not myths or urban legends. They actually happen to real people living ordinary lives, people just like you, and there's absolutely no reason why you can't be the next person to make a discovery, too. Find that $88 million penny, to change your life forever with a single coin. The key is to stay informed, stay vigilant, and never stop looking, because somewhere out there, in someone's pocket, in some forgotten coin jar, in some dusty box in an attic, these valuable coins are waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them, someone careful enough to spot the errors, someone persistent enough to keep searching. Will that someone be you? I genuinely hope so. I hope that months or years from now, I'll hear a story about someone who watched this video, who took the information to heart, who started checking their coins, and who found one of these incredible treasures, because that's what this is all about, empowering people with knowledge, giving you the tools to potentially change your life, and celebrating the incredible world of numismatics where history, artistry, error, and value combine to create these remarkable stories. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for sticking with me through this incredibly detailed exploration of 3 of the most valuable Lincoln pennies in existence. And remember, every penny you receive could be the one, so check your change, examine your coins, and never stop hunting for treasure, because fortune favors the observant, the knowledgeable, and the persistent, and now you are all 3. Until next time, keep searching, keep collecting, and may your next penny be worth $88 million.